Welcome back to another episode of Project Vivo 722. Before we get started, I just want to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Also wanted to say thank you to everybody who has liked and subscribed to the video so far. You guys are the first bunch of subscribers. I am going to be starting to reach out to guys here and scheduling out the Your Rides video so we can get a really good look of who's in the community, what you have, and bring your socials out to light so that you can get more followers and whatnot. I know this page isn't massive yet, but we're getting there. Um, I also wanted to thank Ethan Marks for being our first Your Rides car. I also want to thank him for letting us do a little tour of his shop as well and giving us a little bit of his background as well. Today, our episode is going to be focused on the tuner culture as a whole, and how it became what it became and how it became mainstream in the United States. That's exactly what we're going to be covering today. So let's get this started. So basically, the culture started relatively early 80s, late 70s, basically in SoCal. There was a lot of people out there that were looking for a more affordable platform to tune on. Um, like this Toyota and Mazda were giving out, and the Japanese market were giving out these cars that were more affordable, and easy to squeeze some power out of back in the day. Especially like the RX models for Mazda with the rotary engines. Those things were little powerhouses back in the day. Throwing big turbos on those and getting that popcorn going. So basically, these SoCal became the epicenter for this growth. A lot of these guys were running like Mazda RX chassis along with Nissan Z's and S chassis, and they were just going out doing it on the street basically, or going out to these small drag events and then just kind of just racing each other. Um, these cars were mostly easily modified. They were mostly easy modified rear-wheel drive vehicles. Um, and what that brought on was you didn't have to spend the money for the V8s. You didn't have to struggle and fight for those guys for parts, stuff along those lines, and they were affordable at the time because they were making like kind of economy cars, we'll call them. And then early 80s, the Option magazine came out from Japan and it made it over here through ways of our military bases and military guys bringing these back over, which gave the U.S. public or the U.S. tuners in their infancy a look at the holy grail of cars that today we can now start importing, um, like your Nissan GTRs, your JDM RX-7s, Toyota Supras, all that, like in Civic Type R's, Integra Type R's, all that kind of stuff that you really couldn't get your hands on, because of U.S. policies and safety regulations, and embargoes, and stuff like that. So with Option coming out, it really gave the community a kick in the pants. Um, by 1990, there's a couple guys on the East Coast. Um, Specifically, one big thing happened in 1990 at Los Angeles County Auto Raceway. They had the first battle of imports, where it was imports only. So you're having a drag event, imports only, about 60 cars showed up, and then that spread on the West Coast, and then on the East Coast, I'm gonna refer to this guy if I can get everything right here. Javier Ortega started to very much so build a community on the East Coast, where he was hosting races in New Jersey, New York, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and they grew. And he was, like I said, about getting out there and trying to become a promoter in my past videos. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about, guys. Like, go into your communities, start these events. Who knows where it can take you? Mr. Ortega here ended up starting his own race team later, and then later became, check my notes real quick here. Neighbor later became the executive director of Sport Compact Division for NHRA. So this guy took a passion of his and just wanted to go out and run with his boys, built himself up, and then got hired by NHRA to run the Sport Compact Division. So he himself will refer to him as, use a Fast and Furious term, one of the original Incas or godfathers of the tuning culture in the United States. He is one of the building blocks and part of the foundation of what we have today and what we take for granted today with these cars that we're building and the stuff that we have in our culture and the ability to do what we can do. And you can almost help you hold him responsible for the fact that some of these tuning manufacturers, the aftermarket parts manufacturers that have come over from Japan, have headquarters in the United States because of guys like this that help build the culture and help spread the word and get the community together and organize everything. Uh, and one of the other things Javier was big on, which actually not a lot of people realize, when he started DRT racing in New York, with driver Rafael Estevez, if I pronounced that right, um, Rafael actually became the real life inspiration for Dominic Toretto, Vin Diesel's character in Fast and the Furious. So, like, if you're looking at culture and like hinge points in the culture, he's responsible for a lot of it. Um, and the cool thing about this is like this boom, you started getting tuning shops all over the East Coast, all over the West Coast, more so on the West Coast because it's more of a West Coast thing at that point in time. But then in these bigger cities or higher density areas, you had a bigger, you had an influx of import tuners starting to pop up. And honestly, if you want to like pinpoint it and give props to a community, um, the Latin American community has had a huge, huge investment in the tuner culture. I mean, you can't thank these guys enough for the stuff that they started out when they started bringing their stuff to grassroots because they weren't even in some of the countries where they're at. They wouldn't sell American made cars. So you had these JDM cars being sold there. So they were tuning these things before we even had our hands on some of these parts. So they're almost the godfathers when they came over, immigrated from these South American countries or islands and or Caribbean islands and stuff like that. When they came here, they already had some of this base knowledge, and then we picked up off of it because they brought it in, and that's where you see most of these tuner epicenters popping up, like SoCal, around Philly, New York. Um, Places like that where you have high density Latin American immigration. Um, with the tuner culture spreading that much in the early '90s, early and mid '90s, you started getting a huge pop up of these other promotions. You had Nopi, uh, Body. You also had hot import nights. I know when I was younger, hot import nights was everywhere. Like our local auto show, the Philadelphia Auto Show, they had down downstairs from like the main where you had all the manufacturers, they had a hot import night sponsored show at one point. And it was just all tuner cars down there. It was like based off of like the aftermarket modification culture. But at one of these bigger ones was Nopi, and a lot of these you know companies have disappeared over the last 5 to 6 years. One of them's actually making a resurgence. Nopi, which is one of the biggest ones, has just started recently doing Nopi Nationals. They had their first one last year, in Georgia. This year they have three of them. One I'm hoping to attend, which is going to be in Maryland in I think August. So like you're starting to get that resurgence, and like guys, I these events are 3-day events. They have drifting, drag racing, car shows, a whole mess of stuff just for the tuner culture. And my biggest stress on this is don't ruin it. Okay, if you're gonna go to these events, go let the drivers, the racers race, enjoy what they're doing, don't try to go out to these things and simulate this shit in the parking lot because either one, you don't have the skill to fucking do it. Two, you're just gonna get the show fucking canceled, or three, you're gonna, at the worst, you're gonna get the show canceled, someone fucking hurt, and you're gonna end up at fucking jail. So there's the thing, like we're starting to get traction going the right direction in the culture because the culture is going to die eventually. It with EV coming out, I don't see the tuner culture being and like all these aftermarket companies and whatnot being able to sustain a good presence. Yes, there's enough ICE engines out there that can last us for the next 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. However, the government's going to crack down on regulations on aftermarket tuning. It's just going to end up happening eventually. So let's enjoy it while we have it and maybe build it to kind of build up a defense so we can have it as long as possible, is what I'm saying. So if you're going to one of these sanctioned events, just don't be a fucking idiot. Nobody's trying really hard to come back. I really, really hope they do. They are, from when I was a kid, man, like you wanted to be able to get your car accepted into a Nopi Nationals event. Just because that was like the pinnacle of like you built your car and your car is going to be accepted into the community as one of the the mainstays. Um, After the mid '90s here, this gave birth to opening of brand exposure for like I was talking about those bigger companies coming over from Japan for tuning because the boom of import cars being bought um, with like fuel crises and stuff like that. You have HKS Ready Apex that soon opened up headquarters in California, all California, New Jersey, all over the country. And as soon as that stuff started happening and the culture started growing, people started benefiting off the culture. You have a boom in not just aftermarket parts industry, but also media industry. You had a plethora of magazines that started coming out, like Super Street, Modified Mag, High Tech Performance, Sport Compact Car. You had a boatload of these big companies coming out, magazine companies coming out. Which I mean, unfortunately, the internet killed a lot of them. I know Super Street's still online on. I think they're owned part by Motor Trend. I think at this point in time, but you can go on Super Street online, and actually like read articles and stuff. I know one of my big things when I was growing up as a kid, um, in the mid 2000s was one of my big things was I always wanted to have like one of my goals. I wanted to build a car that would get put into Super Street, not necessarily as one of like the three main cars that they go over in Super Street, but as what they had a section called Reader's Rides, and they had about 10 cars or 8 cars or something like that that would be on a page, and they would have like a quick bio of the car, bio of the driver, and then have a picture of the car. Like that was my goal. I was not trying to knock it out the park and become like a massive thing. Like I just wanted to just hopefully get my car accepted into Reader's Rides, and I would have considered myself, hey, like I made an awesome build. Unfortunately, the magazine folded by that point, and they're just online. But that's happened to a lot of them because with the internet coming up, it really destroyed it. But however, what the internet did for our culture though was awesome. So the internet gave us an ability to go on like these almost like Reddit pages or forums and converse with each other and really, really, really like help each other build builds and give more people understanding of what they're doing, insights into certain engine builds, stuff like that. Like I remember when I was getting into Subaru and stuff when I was younger, NASIOC, North American Subaru Impreza Owners Club, was huge for me. I was on NASIOC like every night of the week. Just literally looking up stuff, going over stuff. Like if I had problems doing something, I would look it up on there. Uh, Guys were always awesome, always really, really respectful to talk to, stuff like that. I mean, you would have a couple like an ass hat, like why are you tuning this car, or why'd you bolt that onto your car, like. But here's the thing, like I always said, building these things is for you. Don't build the car for somebody else. What I mean by that is don't build the car for the clout. Build the car because that's your preference. That's what you want to drive. That's what you love. Build it that way. You're going to get more fulfillment out of your build, doing it for you, than you are anyone else. Um, and that's one of the main things that I preach every time I'm out at car meet or anything like that to these younger guys is build it for you. Okay. Sorry to jump off topic. We'll get back on here real quick. And then that eventually you had the tuner atom bomb in a sense. Tuner culture atom bomb in '99. Fast and the Furious came out, and like every motherfucker out there that had a Civic or an Integra or any of the cars that they filmed that were in the film thought they had a freaking race car. And then like Pep Boys and like Advanced Auto Parts were just booming with like these like little like bolt on like snap on like glue on 3M taped shit just fucking everywhere. Um, but the cool thing is it really boomed the culture, made the culture mainstream, and like the mid 2000s and everything like that became so massive of a following that actually car manufacturers started realizing this. And some car manufacturers, like you had Subaru, they made a version of the WRX, I believe, and the STI that was called the TR. It stood for tuner ready. So what that was a literal base model that still had your, it had your power windows and stuff like that, like, big amenities that, these guys wanted. However, you had like a space stock radio because they knew you were going to rip it out, base stock interior, and then you could go into their magazine that had this SPT, which stood for Subaru Performance Tuning, where you could literally buy what looked like aftermarket, but they were manufacturer bolt-ons for the car that you could buy right away and bolt right on that were literally designed so you could run these things without a tune, which on a Subaru is freaking unheard of. The minute you touch the damn intake, you can get a damn tune on these cars. Um, but that was cool. And then you actually had a manufacturer, Toyota, that really bought into it because Toyota went from, you know, making like, your Mark IV Supra and stuff like that to completely washing their performance division almost, where they only had like like the Celica, I believe. Um, and they went and took it one step further, and they banked on this younger generation that was coming out that was fueling off the Fast and the Furious movies, and they made a brand called Scion. And what Scion was awesome about Scion, what Scion did is they give you an affordable platform with a decent base platform on it that you could literally go into a dealership, open up a freaking accessory book that was like yay thick, that you could go in there, buy TRD, which is Toyota Racing Development, bolt on parts. So wheels, body kits, accessory lighting, vinyl decals, rear spoilers. They had turbo and pro tune kits. Like you could buy these before you would pick the car up from the dealership, and they would bolt it on. So rolling off the lot, you had a semi-built vehicle. Um, and the aftermarket parts for those things were freaking insane. Um, like my fondest memories of growing up in that time era was when I was like 10 years old or 9 years old, so that's like 99 or 2000. The lady who used to babysit me or put me on the school bus, her son had early 90s Nissan Maxima, I think it was, bright yellow with a giant Neo Speed sticker down the side of the freaking car, full exhaust. Um, Back then, like tuning the computer really wasn't a thing. That you had these like plug and play chip add-ons. He had some stage one or stage two set up on that thing with a big ass freaking tack on the dash and a boost gauge. I thought it was the coolest freaking thing on the planet. Just because it's like you see that person, you see that in the movie, and you're like, yo, it's freaking Fast and Furious. Like this is like the epiphany, and it's like the epiphany of a tuner culture, like the visual essence of the tuner culture right there in front of you. And I remember like there was a spot on this main strip that goes through our town, where the bunch of guys used to meet up at the Pep Boys and Advanced Auto parking lot, and they used to have like car shows, and then they would go and obviously they would drag race on the main street there. But the best part about it was controlled. It was like at 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning, and they weren't going to hurt anybody because there ain't no one on the street at that time. So and the authorities were a little lax back then. But the tuner boom really, I know it gave me my love of cars, or helped project my love of cars. I think I was gonna get in the cars by brute force anyway. Um, but a lot of guys don't have that education now, and that's why I'm trying to make this. That's why I was making this video for you. Um, uh, but yeah, and I actually went out to a local meat spot last night. Was out till like 1. Um, and was talking with a younger guy that got into Subarus, and I just so happened to be talking to him about like the newer engine specs versus the old EJ engines. Um, and it was a great conversation, and that's one thing that I'm pressing you guys. If you guys are old heads, to definitely want to get out there. You want to talk to the younger generation and give them pointers, take them under your wing. They're not all bad. This kid last night was working his ass off to get his car to where he wants it, and he's doing one hell of an awesome job. I didn't even catch his name, but it was a great 20-minute, 30-minute conversation with him while I was hanging out with some other friends that were out there. Um, but you definitely want to do it. And then new guys, like, find an old head, thank them for being out there first, and then conversate with them. You don't have to show off to get clout. You'll get more clout in the community if you're just out there asking questions, if you make yourself known, if you're doing the right things, if you're trying to make yourself learn, like trying to learn. That's when you're going to get the best bang for your buck, so to speak, or the best experience you're going to have. And now that we're phasing out these ICE engines or internal combustion engines, um, we really got to stick together as a group and a community to try to make this better for the future, so we can go on into the future with this because we may be the last. Um, thanks for watching again, guys, and like, comment, subscribe. Also follow us on Instagram for the next videos here. I am going to be start grabbing followers now for these your rides videos. We're going to start recording those too. If you guys have any ideas for future videos, comment on the link or comment below. I'm going to have links down below as well for Nopi, Super Street, Boulder Trend, Option. Some of these places to go to get more information on the subject. Thanks for watching, guys. You guys have a good one.